Welcome back, Gadgeteers. It's good to see you. I hope everything is well for you and things are going good. I wanted to talk a little bit about privacy. If you've been watching the news at all, well, let's not call it the news, let's be honest. The opinions of many people about the United States, even if you don't live in the United States, you probably know by now that there is quite a push to censor people and groups, which I disagree with, but I don't want to get into that political stuff right now. I want to talk about what I do to further my privacy so that I can keep my personal information protected. Is any of these perfect? No, definitely not. Are there better choices? Yes. I don't want you to think that what I'm offering here is the best choice. Will you have to pay for some of these services? Unfortunately, yes. These services aren't free, and we'll talk about which ones are and which ones aren't, and what you might want to look at if they are allegedly free. All right, so the first category is operating system. This one is a little bit tricky because if you are on Linux, you think the answer is really easy. Well, I'm on Linux, I'm all good. You know, or should know, it doesn't work that way. There's actually so many distros, and some of them are not created equally. Some of them do have phone home elements in it, like Ubuntu. Not saying Ubuntu is bad, but I would be more inclined to want to use something like Arch, Debian, Fedora, which is what I use, than I would Red Hat or Deepin or some of these other Linux versions that are available out there. Distros. So I use Fedora. It's not necessarily the most locked down version of Linux by a long shot. And you got to keep in mind, whenever you're using a service on your operating system, no matter how secure your operating system is and how protective it is of your privacy, there's a good chance that one of your services or other software is leaking information about you. And we'll get to that. So you can also consider a really good Unix-like software OS, which is FreeBSD. And I've been experimenting with FreeBSD. It has many similarities to Linux. It's not that difficult to install. I actually consider it easier than Arch, but a little bit in the same grouping there. There's a little bit more work that you have to do. I like it, and I've considered switching from Fedora. The one thing that I would have to be able to do is run all the applications I use. And I did a video in the past about the different applications that I use, but I would really like to do another one and let you see what I'm using lately. Okay, so operating system. If you're running Windows, and it's Windows 10, I shouldn't just say Windows, and it's Windows 10, your privacy is compromised, or should know. So I'm telling you now it is. There are versions of Windows 10 that have all of that telemetry software stripped out. It isn't sanctioned by Microsoft, but you know, if you have a license, you should have the right to take out anything you don't want to use. It really depends on the terms of service and their privacy policy and whether or not you looked at it. But they are out there and they're available. In some ways, it's crippleware because it's possible when you want to do an upgrade or even a driver update, you may run into problems. But I have seen videos go by, and I think they're interesting, and I check them out. But it's something to consider. So Windows 10, it really wasn't intended to protect your privacy. They didn't really care. That wasn't the goal. Why can you get Windows 10 for free? Of course, you might have to pay. Depends on the situation. But initially, you could upgrade for free. Why? Why get it for free? Because you really do pay. You pay with the information that you provide Microsoft via the operating system. So even if you use a browser and an application that secures your data, the operating system isn't securing your data, so there could be issues. So suppose you use a VPN in a private browser. That doesn't mean that the information isn't being sent to Microsoft. Okay, number 2, browsers. So let's talk about a computer first. I was watching Distrotube, and he just recently did a video, and he was talking about wanting a browser that was truly open source with an open organization instead of, a business or a large company. And I've been feeling that for quite a while about Mozilla, and with the recent information that Mozilla has published on how we should handle censorship, I was really disenfranchised. So I would rather not use Firefox. I don't want to use Chrome. I don't want to use anything Windows 10 might offer, and I really don't want to use Safari. So I started looking around, and the one that I liked that Distrotube recommended is LibreWolf. And essentially it is the source code of Firefox from Mozilla with all of the telemetry and the phone home software stripped out. So there may be some issues when you go to certain websites. I haven't used it yet, but it's one that I think would be most likely on my list, and I do plan on switching out of Firefox. I've done it before, and to be honest, this is just so depressing. I'm looking for a browser that isn't behind a big corporation. And a corporation that agrees that we should censor free speech in the United States. So I have a serious problem about that. Not the corporation necessarily, but the CEO. If I am using my iPhone, I think the browser I would use is Brave. Unfortunately, I do use the iPhone, and I went and had a look at different browsers. I was hoping LibreWolf would have an app, but they don't yet for iPhone. Possibly I could compile my own, might be a little bit of work. I wanted to mention also the LibreWolf browser is only available for Linux or BSD. It is not available for Windows as far as I know. They do have several different ways. There's snap packs, app images, source code, many different ways that you can get the browser on your computer. For me, the easiest is app image. Because you pull it in, you use it, there's an update, you grab the new app image. Simple as that. So that's probably what I would do. Okay, so anyway, iPhone. The Brave browser is what I think I'm going to use temporarily. And I'd be very curious to hear what you're doing in either the Apple ecosystem or the I hate it when I can't remember words. Android ecosystem. So if you have any other recommendations for browsers, I'd like to hear it. Here's one of my big pet peeves. When you go and look at the terms of service, and there are like in this menu system, right, table of contents, and there are like 10 or 15 different things you have to look at with breakout policies like cookie policy, privacy policy, who can use it, blah, 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 and so on. And you realize that the larger the terms of service and the policies are, especially if they need breakout policies, that means that they can't tell you what they're going to do with cookies in one paragraph. That means they're going to be huge amount of information you're going to have to look at. The longer the terms of service and the privacy policy, etc., the less likely it's something you probably want to use, to be honest. All right, let's continue. So the iPhone, I would use Brave. Email. This is email I signed up for, man, it might have been like 6-7 years ago. Whenever Proton Mail came about, I decided to use it because the reason for Proton Mail coming out was really interesting. Again, it was about free speech. So their servers are located, I believe, in Switzerland, and everything is encrypted. They have no access to your mail account. If you want to change the password, they can do nothing for you. So your mail, everything in it, your username and password, really the username is the only piece that's public. So everything is encrypted in Proton, and the reason it came about was very interesting. So if you are doing research, years back I was working on a PhD. I just got too sick, so I had to let it go. But there was this concern that accessing research documents that were published by these huge publishing corporations like Elsevier, and they basically copyright the material. So if you want to look at it, you have to be a part of their service, or you have to pay a one-time fee to actually download that particular research. The problem with that is a couple of things. Number one, you may not have the money to pay for one download. It could be $100, $200, $300. And the other thing is, I guarantee you don't have money to be a part of the service. The only way I could see that you could get access to Elsevier documents is if your school actually subscribes to that particular publishing service, and in turn you can then access it. And that doesn't even guarantee you're going to access all the documents. So I can't remember who started it, but a database of open documents, in other words, documents that probably were published and copywritten, but these particular people felt that everybody should have access to them, and I have to agree, were essentially hunted down. And there was a variety of ways the publishers wanted to entrap people who were using this research. One way was through the free database of documents that you could use. Another way they were hoping was through email or browsers, trying to find out who's using those particular documents instead of paying for them. Here's where I have a huge problem. Imagine you want to access a research document, and Elsevier wants you to pay $300. But your taxpayer money funded the research. Why should you have to pay a publisher to look at that document? And that was the logic with Proton Mail. They wanted to be able to give you a place with encryption where you could store these documents, read these documents, share them between your fellow PhDs or, doctoral students. So that was what started Proton Mail. You can still get Proton Mail for free, but just to warn you, the base account is really not that great. You can import your contacts from another system like I did with Google, Gmail. You can't edit them, I believe. You have to pay for that. I know it sounds weird, but you only get 500 megabytes of storage. So if you want it, you have to pay, I believe it's like $7 or $8 to get the enhanced package, which gives more than enough storage for what you're getting. So Proton Mail, servers are someplace that, organizations, government agencies within the United States can readily and easily gain access to, and even if they can, it's all encrypted. We've heard a lot about how easy, well, I shouldn't say easy, but it is possible to break encryption, and yes, it probably is. but it's not going to be easy. So at least from that standpoint, you know that your email is encrypted and it's not being read by Google. You have Gmail, right? It's free. I don't have to pay anything. You're right. But for right now, knowing that Gmail and Google read all of your emails and parse them to give you better advertisements is bad. But knowing that in the future that information may be used against you, even retroactively. Think about that. All the emails you've ever sent, okay, even if you deleted them, that doesn't necessarily mean that Google deleted them. So something to think about. VPN, Virtual Private Network. I use Proton VPN, and I'm not trying to sell their services to you, okay? I just chose to use them because of Proton Mail, and then Proton VPN. I thought, well, I respect the business model that Proton Mail has created, so I'm going to try Proton VPN. They do have an app for iPhone, iPad, any tablets that are Android and any Android phones, as well as Windows and Linux. Now, the Linux tool that you use to run the VPN is kind of kludgy. You have to run commands, but it's so easy. I basically created this text document on my desktop. It has all the commands in it, and you just grab the command. Okay, this is the one I'm going to use to start the VPN. Bloop. You pop it into a CLI, a command line interface. You're fine. Take the next one, you want to stop it, pop it in there, press enter. You're done. You're no longer using a VPN. So it's really nice, very simple, and it's something that I am really glad that I purchased. Again, do I have a reason for it? Yeah, I think privacy is at risk right now, so I do. Okay, let's continue. Services. I'm curious what you think about the various services. And the first one I'm going to talk about is search engines. Knowing and understanding that Google, possibly Microsoft, is capturing and recording every single one of your searches in perpetuity and retroactively. So you say, I have nothing to hide. We all have nothing to hide, right? So what? But today we have nothing to hide. But maybe 4 years ago, you said, I really think that it's best if we have Trump for president. And all of a sudden, you're being rounded up. Could it happen? I don't know. Will it happen? I don't know. But if you value your privacy, consider using a search engine that does respect your privacy, like DuckDuckGo. Okay, Office product. Now, there's many online Office products like Google Docs. Microsoft has Office.com, so you can get access to the Office products online. I prefer to use LibreOffice. So there's a penalty for using a non-online service. That is that essentially you have to make sure you back up your documents and you save them in a secure location, and possibly you may want to encrypt them. So something to think about. So it takes a little bit more work. You have to have your documents available if you want to transport them. Proton Mail fairly quickly here is going to get an online storage drive, so to speak, so you can store stuff securely in a encrypted drive, which I really like. That'll be nice. Otherwise, you could use Proton Mail and email yourself the document if you plan on working on it on a different computer, maybe a different location altogether. So, yeah, you can use Google Docs, and you can use Microsoft Office.com, but I personally don't think it's a good idea. You got to remember that you are sharing more information with Google and other companies. And these companies, like Google, may be sharing that information with somebody else. We really don't know. So I would be concerned. Are there other services you might be using? Yeah, it's possible. Twitter, Facebook. All of these, you have to keep in mind that they are collecting and parsing and evaluating all the data you're creating. Facebook has some unbelievable research that's going on, even to the point of showing you certain things on your news feed to see how you'll react, whether you'll be sad or not. Can you imagine that? Facebook showing things on your news feed to see if you get sad. It's disgusting. And I would like to point out, they did not set up from an independent organization to collect the research in the first place, and we, the supposed customer, were unknowing. So that disgusts me. I'm trying out MeWe to replace Facebook. Now, you have to remember that half or more of the people you communicate with are not going to want to leave Facebook. So the one thing I do like about MeWe is that when you do private messaging, it's encrypted end-to-end with 2 private keys, and there's no way for MeWe to see it or recover that particular messaging back and forth. You might say, well, I don't need that. I'll just text. I'm sorry to tell you, Verizon has admitted that they have collected every single text every single person has sent on their network and never deleted them. That's bad. That's really bad. Or was it AT&T? I can't remember. But one or the other. So you're not protected in that regard. That's why I mentioned MeWe mainly for the privacy of being able to communicate back and forth. I like that. And you might say, yeah, but Facebook is encrypted too. Yeah, you can get Facebook encryption. You can get other applications that encrypt information back and forth, but there's a third party that can listen to it and record it. Just keep that in mind. So another factor, WhatsApp, really good application, was purchased by Facebook. Facebook said, for now, we're not going to share information between WhatsApp and Facebook. And they said, that's over. We've waited a year or two. Now it's time for us to take all that collected data from WhatsApp and move it into Facebook and vice versa. So we want to be able to use all that data from WhatsApp in your Facebook account. So we've collected even more information. Okay, what's the bottom line? So you've got these tools that you can use, and will any one of them help you? A little bit. Will all of them together help you? Quite a bit more, but I do want to preface by saying, if you use these tools, I'm not telling you you're 100% secure. I don't want you to believe that. And the other factor is, if you use these tools, but you're still getting on Facebook, Gmail, Google to do searches, even if you're going through a VPN, think of it that way, you're not anonymized now. When you log in, you've told them who you are, right? So they don't care where you came from. They're going to collect all that information about you. And the VPN would be useless. To some extent, same for using LibreWolf or the Brave browser. So you've got the Brave browser, let's say. You've got a VPN. You're using a search engine that does not collect information about you. And you think, I'm secure. Meanwhile, there's several tabs you have open: Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, and so on. Google search. So part of securing your privacy is finding organizations, hopefully completely free, literally, open source, and then stopping the use of the software and the applications and the online services that hemorrhage your personal information. That's the hard part. And I would not expect a reasonable person to be able to make the changes in a period of one day. This is something you have to think about. On my Gmail account, I actually have several Gmail accounts. I have my private Gmail account, my public-facing Gmail account, and my Fast Gadgets Gmail account. And how much of that stuff do I want, going to Proton Mail? I don't really think I need to do that. So there is some stuff I just don't care about. All the places I've shopped, Amazon and so on, I really don't want to move all that to Proton Mail. I want to move vital communications to my encrypted email. The VPN, you're wasting your time using a VPN if you're going to use a leaky browser and you're just going to go to all those services anyway. You really are wasting your time. I think Gmail, for example, might be curious why you're popping up in France when yesterday you were in the United States, and then you shut your browser down and 2 seconds later you're back in the United States. They know the score. They know what's going on. So you're not hiding. You're not protecting your information. I think we talked about it, but I do recommend, no matter who you choose, no matter what operating system, what browser, email, etc., you've got to read the terms of service. I know it's boring, but please do it for your own sake. If you can't really understand it and it's more than 3 or 4 pages, that should be a red flag for you. So that would really concern me. So be careful. You have to pay for some of these services. We talked about that earlier. The browser is open source. Proton Email as a service, it's not going to be free. Any VPN is not going to be free. I mean, yeah, there are ways to use free VPNs. There's some of them out there, and they're very few. And you could use the Onion router, the Tor network, which is relatively open source. But don't expect to be able to download anything with that. Don't expect really fast access and easy access. So you go to YouTube, you may or may not be able to play the video on the Tor network. It just depends. So there are some free alternatives, but in reality, for services, with the exception of the search engine, you're going to have to pay to be able to use those. And if you say to yourself, I don't want to pay for that, then the conversation's over. You probably should have clicked off a long time ago. Sorry, I should have told you at the beginning. If you say to yourself, well, I'm willing to, $7 a month for encrypted secure email sounds pretty good. What happens if I email somebody that is on Gmail? Well, your email goes to them and it is unencrypted. There may be ways to send an encrypted email, but if they open it and decrypt it in Gmail, Gmail still can see what you sent in the email. So don't think encrypted email like Proton is protecting you if you're sending something that really isn't designed for public consumption and it's private, really private. If you send it to somebody at Gmail, they're going to know, okay? And they're also going to know where it came from. All right. Is there anything else? I think that's everything. I would pay a little bit money, get a better service, move yourself from the services you don't need. So get away from, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or at the very least, those particular services, they can still have a purpose, but the purpose should be maybe, publicity if you're running a YouTube channel or to communicate with your family and stuff like that. other truly private data, think about moving to an alternative service and getting some of this software on your system. I hope this video was useful. If it was, please like and subscribe. If it was really useful, visit my Patreon, patreon.com/fastgadgets, and consider joining me and donating a few dollars. Thanks for watching. See you again soon on Fast Gadgets.